You nervous?
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel good in my chest, but I can never get that to my head. Sometimes I feel good in my bed, get up and I don't feel good no more. The street said you don't need meds, my mama said you just need prayer. I need what they give you at the dentist, I don't wanna feel no more. Cause I don't wanna feel no more. I don't wanna feel no more. The street said you don't need meds, my mama said you just need prayer. I need what they give you at the dentist, I don't wanna feel no more. Oh, I don't wanna feel no more. I don't wanna feel no more. Oh, I don't wanna feel no more. My address in a week, I think my address was a beach. My family can't get me on a call, but I know my plug number by heart. No more mirrors, that'll be my demise, cause I still can't look my abuser in his eyes. And I tend to dream about things you break up wrong. But sometimes I feel good in my chest, but I can never get that to my head. Sometimes I feel good in my bed, get up and I don't feel good no more. The street said you don't need meds, my mama said you just need prayer. But I need what they give you at the dentist, I don't wanna feel no more. Oh, I don't wanna feel no more. Ooh, I don't wanna feel no more. The street say you don't need meds, my mama said you just need prayer. But I need what they give you at the dentist, I don't wanna feel no more.
I need what they give you at the dentist. I need what they give you at the dentist. I need what they give you at the. I need what they give you at the. I need what they give you at the dentist. I don't wanna feel no more.
If you have a friend that is consistently mean, it's not just woven into their personality. At some point it is their personality. So this country is, everything that this country has been founded on is rooted in racism.
So many people of color are aware of how the outside world sees them. I think this is a part of being. We understand many times how the outside world processes us. And to have that burden of knowing that the beauty you see in yourself, the uniqueness you see in yourself, the brilliance you see in yourself is something that others may not see the first time they pass you on the street, the first time you walk in their office. It carries with it a burden.
Every single space, education, the criminal justice system, policing specifically, is really challenging to navigate for a lot of folks, and it points to a bigger issue that is certainly systemic.
The racism began right at the beginning of our nation, and if we can't acknowledge that, then none of these pieces will change, right? We can't address systemic racism, individualized racism will continue if we can't acknowledge the most obvious truth that we have as Americans.
There's just facts to back it up, and you can't really argue with facts. I mean, this has been going on for hundreds of years now.
I think much of the problem has been amplified by these systems in place that remove the power from the people in the community.
A lot of people don't want me to succeed, so I gotta succeed. I mean, it's really like that.
But I think it's really important for us to not lose sight of individualized racism.
I think that's the most insidious part of racism, right, is it's found a way to reinvent itself over time.
These systems are made up of individual people.
Yeah, I still think about that kind of stuff every single day. I mean, it's not like it isn't there, it's definitely there.
Like a lot of people kind of have this stereotype as like either pitying me or hating me.
It's sort of like a pressure.
And so if we look at many of our writers, playwrights, philosophers. James Baldwin talks about being in a constant state of rage. Richard Wright talks about the masks we wear. There's so many places that we've seen documented the presence of this dual identity. And so many of us as people of color, we feel it, we walk with it, we carry it. And there is no doubt that if the American Association of Pediatrics says that 8 hours of sleep is what we need to rest, when you're a person that is also working every day and carrying around that burden of a dual identity, I could see where people might be tempted or motivated to use something to anesthetize or stifle the burden they carry, to feel that they can get through their days easier.
We're talking about what it looks like when there are pressures on systems with systemic racism and the impact that has on individuals, when there's individual elements of racism, generational elements that contribute to negative mental health outcomes. Of course, we know that there's absolutely a correlation there between negative mental health outcomes and mental health challenges and the likelihood to engage in substance use with young people.
You said what? You want to let me how much of a I am?
My brothers and sisters get killed on the streets every day. And it does make me anxious. It makes my mom anxious. It makes my family anxious.
As those things become normalized, we begin to see people that market to our communities. We see the billboards. We see the litter on the ground. We begin to see characters in movies and plays that weren't written by us, casting us in our worst versions.
There's a thing in CBT called behavioral activation, where if you're doing things and you're doing these habits and they're good habits, you're less likely to become, to feel those depressive moods or symptoms and things like that.
I don't think that many of the people in my neighborhood knew that what they were trying to do was either quiet their mind, still their mind, find tranquility. I don't think they knew they walked around with the dual mask, right? But I do think that they felt the pressure of being black in America.
Every action, reaction, equal is opposite. The cost basic, when the currency, common sense. Full armor God and a 4-5 with a ride. All advisory, let my people go with a frogs fly. Speedy trials don't stop new fires from bursting. Guilty verdicts don't uncry rivers through churches. What's worse? Murder or the justification. How we mince words over sentences stolen by suffocation.
I think byproducts of racism are probably what contribute to the likelihood to engage in substance use. Absolutely have had substance use disorder and still do in my family, and in a very personal way, as well as mental health challenges, especially those that are not treated, right? And I think that's a really important piece, especially when you talk about Black and Indigenous communities, it's the untreated pieces, whether it is a physical health condition that you're struggling with that you simply don't go to the doctor for, or it's something psychological or mental or emotional that you've never gotten treatment for, or something that you inherited from your parents and their parents and their parents.
So what we see now is apathy becomes normalized. Not caring becomes normalized.
I think it's just important to understand that it's not necessarily that Black communities or other communities of color are more likely to use substances, but there is the stigma associated with our communities that we're more likely to use substances and to do other things, especially other things of a criminal nature.
You look at the disproportionalities in the criminal justice system specifically. You have Black folks who represent 12 or 13% of America's population, but represent around 40% of the prison population. And there are two arguments in place, and it can't be something in between. It's either that Black people are disproportionately affected by a system that is not built for them, or Black people are born more criminal. And I think people aren't willing to acknowledge that there are two arguments, and one makes you inherently racist, and the other is an acknowledgement of that system.
mom's always told me there's really no room for mistakes when you're a black male.
Going back to that power dynamic, how do we keep certain groups oppressed? If I make them believe negative things about themselves, if I make other people believe negative things about them, then that contributes to it, right? That's part of the racism.
And so in my family, my household, my brother had been to jail, and then now he went to prison he was sentenced to 25 years. Oddly, the prison where he was serving time, there's only 2 institutions where I went to college. 2 large institutions, my college, or Sinus College, Graterford Prison, and at night, I would walk the parking lot, and from my parking lot at the college, I could see the lights at the prison. And I would cry in the dark by myself because my world was opening up. I should have been excited. My world was getting bigger. I was meeting people whose dads were the CEOs of businesses, but I knew my brother was within eyesight, rotting, dying, right? Slowly becoming irrelevant. My brothers were a product of my neighborhood. My uncles, my mom's brothers, my Uncle Arthur, my Uncle Will. My Uncle Will I didn't meet till I was 9 years old because he was a drug addict and he wasn't allowed in our house. He had been in and out of jail. My Uncle Arthur was a jazz musician and he would smoke weed, but he was a nice guy, he was a good guy. But by the time I got to be about 16, 17, he went to jail for a year for DUI and little parole violations and things. So for me, I saw jail not as a place to avoid, but as a place I would inevitably end up. There were summers I would spend in my bedroom, and we had grates on my window so people wouldn't break in. And so I didn't have an air conditioner. I had a fan in my room and it would get hot. My mom lived in the front, and so she had an air conditioner. And if I got hot, I could go in her room and cool off. But I would literally stay in my room and do push-ups, 500 push-ups a day, 25 at a time, 25, drink a gallon of milk, because I wanted to be ready for when I went to prison that I'd be prepared, right? I mean, think about the disconnection that was going on. Think about that. I saw myself as inevitably destined for prison as a high school student, as a middle school student. Even though I knew I tested well, I spoke King's English, I just thought by virtue of living in my neighborhood, you'd end up in jail.
A man is dead after being stopped by police. There was video of that. It went viral.
George Floyd's death sparking protests across the country. Denver went into lockdown yesterday after someone there fired a gun near a peaceful protest. Protesters in Columbus, Ohio charged the state capitol, and more demonstrations are expected there today.
Everybody in the world needs to be watching this. The world, please watch this.
Echoing the Eric Garner case from Staten Island, the man told the officer, "I can't breathe."
George Floyd.
George Floyd. George Floyd.
High tension tonight as the country braces itself for another wave of protests over the death of George Floyd.
Obviously, after everything with George Floyd, I was like devastated and horrified and terrified.
One of the most frustrating things is the way the past year or so has felt like it's getting closer to home, literally and metaphorically, right? There have been incidents over the past year that have felt like they're encroaching upon your physical space.
Well, tonight also, Columbus police will investigate the death of Casey Goodson, the 23-year-old black man shot and killed Friday by a deputy.
Oh my gosh, this is happening again in Columbus.
New at midday, we're learning more about the disciplinary past of a former Columbus police officer. Adam Coy was fired from the force after fatally shooting Andre Hill.
With Andre Hill, I just kind of felt like numb, like again.
To Ohio, and another shooting. 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant's mom still in shock today. Her daughter shot and killed by Columbus police on Tuesday.
This is real life. We're talking about human life. We're talking about people that I know, people that we all know.
We gotta watch where we go, who we're with.
I think it was just very eye-opening for a lot of people to see that like gun violence, well, not even just gun violence, that police brutality is a problem in Columbus.
Again, it just brings things into laser focus. So it's not just we're talking about, oh, it's just America, something happened in this other city and this other state over there. This is our community and our neighborhoods, people that we know losing their lives, people that we know being brutalized, people that we know being harassed.
And it kind of just, it's easy to get disquiet, like in your soul about things like that and just kind of giving up. But it almost, and in a way to not romanticize it, it almost like makes me want to fight harder for like, this can't happen anymore. I can't be worried about myself dying or my kids in the future dying, or this needs to change. And not in a way that like, yo, it took all these people to die for something to finally happen, but it's like taking everything in the past and everything that might happen in the future and fighting for a better change because it needs to happen.
Individual scars, we came a long way, thought we all beat the odds. I told my son every day, boy, you a star. Stay watching your back, stay raising the bar. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is how we get it. Look in the mirror, I can show you what the difference is. Stay infamous, it's a black on black team, that's a mission kid. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is how we get it.
But tell me, who's to resurrect all this blood? Carve a heaven from my black back, call the babies back home. Prayers, nightmare, awake, awake, coughing up strange fruits until it burns to smoke flames, pouring in these streets, turn our bodies into barrels, bullets flying in the wind like they flies of fire like the night. Slave catchers better run, run, tell this, we still here. Mouths of garden, placing seeds where the bullets be. Build an orchard from where we bleed. Blood reaches the ground like hands of redemption. God.
Make it make sense to me. Make it make sense to me. Make it make sense to me. Make it make sense to me.
Elevate.
But yeah, that's it. I don't know.
Sweet.
You know how to turn this off?
No.
Done? Did I? All right, y'all better edit it and make it look right. Cause I was rambling.
Well, that's it. Well, they are.
Yeah, y'all.
They're gonna be a part of the process.
If I see the doc and I look like I'm gonna be like, ooh, they didn't hook me up.